Okay, so picture this. You're in the middle of Joshua Tree. The desert stretches out in every direction. The sky above you is this impossible shade of dark blue-black. And the stars are so dense and so close that it genuinely feels like someone punched holes in the ceiling of the universe just to let the light bleed through. You're 9 days into a completely immersive experience built around one of the most iconic television shows ever made. No distractions, no noise, just you, the desert, and 11 seasons of The X-Files playing out in front of you like some kind of sacred fever dream. And the whole thing is called, and I love this, the fan is out there. That's not just a cute marketing line. That's a statement. That's Pluto TV essentially saying, we see you. We know you never left. And we're going to give you something that feels as wild and strange and wonderful as the show itself always did. Now, I want to talk about all of it. The marathon, the fan experience, what Robbie Amell had to say about going back behind the scenes, what his insights reveal about the current state of the X-Files universe, and most importantly, what all of this means for the reboot that Ryan Coogler is quietly, confidently building in the background. Because here's the thing, none of this is happening by accident. The timing, the nostalgia campaign, the choice to put a real fan in the desert for 9 days, this is all part of something bigger. And by the end of this video, I think you're going to see it the same way I do. But first, let's actually feel why this matters. The X-Files premiered on September 10th, 1993. If you were alive and watching television at that time, you remember the specific electricity of it. Fox, which was still this scrappy upstart network trying to carve out an identity against the big three, put on this moody, paranoid, beautifully shot drama about two FBI agents investigating cases that the government didn't want investigated. Mulder believed, Scully was the skeptic, and every week, the tension between those two worldviews, faith versus evidence, hope versus pragmatism, created something that felt genuinely unlike anything else on television. Think about that for a second. In 1993, there was no Marvel Cinematic Universe. There was no prestige television era. There was no Twitter, no Reddit, no fan forums where theories could build on each other like living organisms. And yet the X-Files somehow created one of the most passionate, deeply invested fan communities in the history of the medium, just through the sheer quality of its storytelling and the magnetic chemistry of David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. People didn't just watch this show. They obsessed over it. They recorded episodes on VHS. They argued about mythology arcs at school the next morning. They made Mulder's, I Want to Believe, poster into a genuine cultural artifact. And here's what's remarkable. They never really stopped. The show ran for 9 seasons, ended in 2002, came back for 2 revival seasons in 2016 and 2018, produced 2 feature films, and somehow, still has a fan base that is active, vocal, and deeply emotionally invested in what happens next. That is not a common story in television. Shows don't usually survive that long in the cultural conversation. The X-Files is different, and the reason it's different matters because it speaks directly to why something like the Pluto TV marathon event makes total sense right now. Let's talk about what Pluto TV is actually doing here, because I think it's smarter than it initially appears. Pluto TV is a free, ad-supported streaming service, and in an era where every major streamer is fighting tooth and nail for paid subscribers, raising prices, cracking down on password sharing, canceling shows after 1 season, Pluto TV has positioned itself as the place where you can actually breathe, where you can sit down with an enormous library of content and not feel the financial pressure of a monthly subscription hanging over every viewing decision. And putting all 11 seasons of The X-Files on there, that's a power move. That's saying, we have something you actually want to watch, and it costs you nothing to watch it. But the fan is out there experience takes it further. They didn't just drop the content and call it a day. They built an event around it. They found a real fan, a genuine, actual X-Files devotee, and they put them in Joshua Tree for 9 days to experience the marathon in this completely immersive, almost ritualistic way. And look, Joshua Tree is not an accident of geography. Joshua Tree is alien territory. It's the landscape that looks like it belongs in a different dimension. The twisted trees, The massive boulders, the quality of silence at night that is so complete it almost has texture. It's the kind of place where believing in the unexplained feels not just reasonable, but inevitable. This is Pluto TV understanding the emotional language of X-Files fandom. They're not treating this like content delivery. They're treating it like a cultural event, like a ceremony, almost. And that distinction between content delivery and ceremony is exactly what separates the streaming services that fans actually love from the ones that fans simply use. Now, Robbie Amell. If you're deep in X-Files lore, you know him. If you came to the show more recently, here's what you need to know. Robbie Amell appeared in seasons 10 and 11 as Agent Einstein's partner and as a key figure in some of the mythology episodes that attempted to close out the show's long, complex, conspiratorial narrative. His character existed at this interesting intersection of the old guard mythology and the new generation trying to carry it forward, which, and this is important, turns out to be a pretty good metaphor for what Amell himself represents in the broader X-Files conversation. When Amell talked about what it was like to actually be on that set, working with David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, the thing that jumped out at me wasn't the reverence. Though that was there, it was the specificity of the reverence. He wasn't giving you the standard, "Oh, it was amazing, they're legends" type of answer that you could copy-paste onto any press junket interview. He was talking about what it actually felt like to be in scenes with them. The way Duchovny carries Mulder's decades of weight in his body language, in the precise timing of his dry humor, in the way he makes paranoia look like the most reasonable position in the room. The way Anderson brings this layered, architectural intelligence to Scully. You can see her thinking, you can see her resisting, and then you can see the moment she considers that maybe, just maybe, the impossible thing is real. That's craft. That's decades of inhabiting a character until the character inhabits you. And for someone like Amell, who has built a solid career playing capable, charming, slightly square heroes across a bunch of different projects, walking into that environment must have been both exhilarating and genuinely humbling. What comes through clearly in the way he talks about the experience is that working on the X-Files changed something for him, not just professionally but creatively. There's something about a show that has that kind of history, that kind of mythology, that kind of weight that demands a different level of presence from every person who walks onto its set. You can't be casual about it. You can't just show up and hit your marks. The material requires you to be committed in a way that is uncommon in television. And the people already there model that commitment from the first day. And here's where it gets genuinely interesting for our purposes today. Amell's experience on the show, and the way he talks about it now, gives us a window into what the show's culture actually was in those later seasons. Because there's been a lot of discussion, some of it pointed, some of it unfair, about whether seasons 10 and 11 delivered on the promise of the revival. My read? The ambition was there. The problems were mostly structural, the limited episode count forcing mythology that needed room to breathe to sprint instead, guest characters who deserved more development getting compressed into single episodes. But the spirit of the show, the DNA, that was intact, and Amell's presence in those seasons, and the way he speaks about them with genuine affection and pride, confirms that. Let's go a little deeper into the fan culture piece of this, because I think it's the key to understanding why everything we're talking about today is actually happening. X-Files fandom is one of those communities that developed sophisticated analytical tools decades before that was considered normal fan behavior. These were people who were building complex mythology flowcharts before the internet made that easy. They were debating the implications of individual episodes on Usenet groups and early message boards with the kind of textual rigor you'd expect from a graduate seminar. They were, and this is important, teaching themselves how to be better readers of narrative by engaging deeply with this show. The shipping wars between Mulder and Scully shippers versus No Romos, people who wanted the relationship to remain platonic, were some of the earliest and most intense online fandom conflicts in history, predating similar conversations in other fandoms by years. The way X-Files fans argued about that relationship, the complexity of it, the subtext of it, the question of whether making it explicit would strengthen or destroy the dynamic, was genuinely sophisticated emotional and narrative analysis. And what did all of that produce? A fan base that knows this show cold. People who can tell you not just what happened in any given episode, but why it matters, how it connects to the 3 episodes before it, what it was trying to say thematically, where the writer was coming from, what was happening in the real world at the time that gives it additional resonance. This is not casual viewership. This is literary fandom. This is the kind of relationship with a text that universities build entire courses around. So when Pluto TV puts together something like the Fan is Out There experience, they are acknowledging that relationship. They're saying, we understand that for you, watching this isn't passive entertainment. It's engagement. It's participation. And we're going to create a framework for that participation that honors the depth of what you bring to it. The 9-day immersive experience isn't just a marketing stunt. It's a mirror held up to the way X-Files fans have always engaged with this show, completely, unreservedly, with every part of their imagination activated. Okay, now, Ryan Coogler, the reboot. Let's talk about what might actually be happening there. Ryan Coogler directing a reboot of the X-Files is, on its surface, one of those announcements that makes you tilt your head and go, wait, really? Because Coogler's filmography, Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, is rooted in a very specific kind of emotional storytelling. He makes films about identity, about legacy, about what people carry from the past into uncertain futures, about belonging and alienation and the cost of being different in a world that wants to flatten everything into the familiar. And the longer you sit with that, the more you realize, oh, that's actually perfect for the X-Files. Because the X-Files was always, underneath the aliens and the monsters and the government conspiracies, a show about outsiders. Mulder is a man whose entire worldview places him outside acceptable social and professional reality. Scully is a woman in a field that constantly underestimates her, constantly tries to reduce her to something smaller than she is. Their partnership, their investigation, their refusal to accept the official story, all of it is rooted in a kind of principled alienation from the mainstream. They don't fit, and because they don't fit, they can see things that the people who do fit choose not to see. Coogler understands alienation. He understands what it means to carry a history that the dominant culture has tried to erase or minimize. He understands the cost of believing in something that the people in power insist isn't real. If he brings even a fraction of the thematic sophistication he brought to the Black Panther films to an X-Files reboot, the result could be something genuinely extraordinary. Not a nostalgia exercise, but a reinvention, a reclamation of the show's core ideas filtered through a contemporary lens that is sharper and more urgent than anything the original run could have imagined. Now, here's my theory, and this is me going full analyst mode, so buckle up. I think the Pluto TV marathon, the Fan is Out There campaign, Robbie Amell's behind-the-scenes commentary, all of this is part of a deliberate, coordinated effort to reseed X-Files consciousness in the cultural conversation ahead of Coogler's reboot announcement. You don't spend resources on a 9-day immersive fan experience in Joshua Tree unless you're trying to activate something. Unless you're trying to remind a generation of fans why they fell in love with this world and introduce a new generation to what makes it worth caring about. Think about it from a purely strategic standpoint. The X-Files is a known IP with a massive, passionate fan base. But it's been 6 years since the Fan is Out There. And honestly, so are we. All of us. Every time we queue up an episode at midnight, because we can't quite stop thinking about the mythology, every time we get into an argument about whether the standalone Monster of the Week episodes are better than the Myth Arc episodes. They often are, by the way, but that's a video for another day. Every time we feel that specific, irreplaceable thrill of a cold open that drops you into something genuinely unsettling before the credits even roll. We never really left. And the truth? Still out there. Waiting. I want to believe. Outro beat. Low, atmospheric, the X-Files theme faintly beneath it. If you made it to the end of this one, drop a comment. Tell me what your favorite X-Files episode is. Tell me what you think Coogler is going to do with the reboot. Tell me if you'd spend 9 days in Joshua Tree for this. And if you're new here, welcome. We go deep on this channel. Subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from. Stay curious. Stay skeptical and keep looking up.